All right, I'm delighted to say that Katie Taylor's coach, Ross Enamait, is with us on the line. Ross, how are you getting on?
Good, how are you?
All good. Thanks a million for taking the call. We're 10 days on now from Taylor Serrano 2. Have you recovered? Have you come down? Because I presume that's a bit of a piece of work for a coach as well as a fighter.
Yeah, no, it's been it was a heck of a fight. Obviously, it's great to get the win, it's just there's been a lot of big nights, but it was definitely a big one going into Texas, kind of being on the away side and coming out with a win in a really obviously close and tough fight.
So what have you done for the last week and a half? How do you manage to get back to reality? Do you just fly straight back to Connecticut? Do you get straight back to work?
Yeah, I flew back the next day, so I just kind of hit the ground and get right back into it. So there's not too much downtime, but doesn't mean I can't enjoy it. That's for sure.
And is it rewatching the fight that allows you to enjoy it a little bit more? Is it just thinking about how you felt in the moment, or how do you manage to soak in that enjoyment from a big win?
When I rewatch the fight, I'm not really there to enjoy it or not enjoy it. I'm kind of just taking a look at really what happened and having a real close look, because obviously when you're there and you're in the corner, you've got emotions running high. And once that kind of settles down, you can look back and take a look at, what we did well and what we didn't maybe do so well, and kind of just absorb what actually happened.
Top line on both of those columns, what did you do well, what didn't you do well?
Oh, no, hey, we came out with a win. It's a tough fight. I think Amanda and Katie, they could fight 100 times, and it's always going to be razor close. There's going to be people that think we won. There's going to be people that think, Amanda won. The way they match up and where they are at in their career, they're evenly matched, and that's why you get great fights. Looking back, I think one of the things that, if we could maybe do differently was, we were out of action for a year. So a year's a long layoff, especially at this stage in your career. I don't think it helped us, but, it's just the way the circumstances were.
Is it particularly tough for Katie at this stage in her career to go a year without fighting? When you get older, do you need to be fighting a little bit more regularly to keep yourself a bit sharper?
It's not necessarily a matter of age. It's just, just to stay sharp. It's one thing. You're in the gym and you're training and you're keeping your body fit, but just the experience of the fight night, the nerves, the emotions of the week, the pre-fight, and not having gone through that in a year, it's a long time. You kind of like forget some of the things. Okay. Like the nervous anxiety that you have the week of, and, she had to kind of go through that for the first time in a year. So, whereas Serrano obviously fought in July, would have been nice to get one in between.
For sure. How do you manage to replicate that where possible? Is there anything that you can do to try and create those jitters, to create those pre-fight nerves in that full year beforehand? Because it seems like such an important part for the mental preparation.
We had good sparring, and Katie's experience, obviously, I think today's actually 8 years she's been professional as of today. So,
right.
Obviously, she's an experienced fighter. So, but, there's certain things you just can't replicate. There's nothing like getting under the bright lights in front of a crowd and, just experiencing that. You can't replicate that in the gym, no matter how hard you try.
So when you watch the fight back, Ross, are you watching it with commentary or without commentary?
Well, I did both.
Right.
I think the commentary was obviously biased against us. It's pretty obvious. There's, one instance, I think it was obviously the first round was kind of a cagey round, and we got caught at the end of the round with a few seconds left. So we lose the first round, and then we boxed better in the second round, and I thought even better in the third. Third round, we actually won on all three of the judges' scorecards. But to start the fourth round, the commentary begins the round by saying, "This is the fourth round, and there's concern in the corner of the undisputed champion." It's like, we just had our best round, but you're painting this picture of concern, and, it's how you create bias. And it's how you have kind of common viewers that are watching it and they're thinking, "Oh, wow, like there's trouble in in Katie's corner. She must be losing." And it paints a picture, and that we knew we were up against that. So, I watched it with the commentary just for curiosity, but, that you see a different fight when you turn the commentary off, obviously.
I can imagine it was pretty extraordinary. I was just watching it back another time myself this morning, and again, it is quite astonishing, even when the decision is announced at the end, and listening to what they were saying on Netflix afterwards, and I think a cauldron of controversy is what the main commentator refers to Texas as. One of the co-commentators refers to an asterisk on Taylor's legacy, how you can rob Amanda Serrano after that performance. It was quite an astonishing series of sentences in the aftermath of one of the great fights that Taylor just about edged, and fairly so.
Yeah, and look, it's a close fight. There's no one disputing that. But close fights aren't robberies, right? It's like everyone wants the best to fight the best. You get the best in there. They give it their all. It's a razor close fight. There's going to be people that think one fighter won. There's going to be people that think the other fighter won. That's what you want in boxing. That's what creates excitement, and that's what it was. But when you look at, some big names, you got, Shakur Stevenson, Terrence Crawford, Teddy Atlas, Caleb Plant. These are all people that saw the fight. They're boxing people. They're fighters. They're the best in the world at what they do, and they saw us edging a close fight. So when you see something like that, it gives you a little bit of reassurance as opposed to, an anonymous person on Twitter who's, talking out their ass.
Yeah, for sure. I do wonder to what extent it matters, though, because obviously it's the co-main event of a bout that maybe exposed boxing to a new audience, people who maybe would have come from a YouTube background, who maybe hadn't watched too many pro fights themselves. There's kind of a duty for the commentator to educate and bring people along and paint a picture without a whole pile of bias. Like, everybody's got their unconscious bias, and that's totally fine. And if you're friends with Amanda Serrano, that's totally fine. But was it a bit careless, I do wonder?
No, I think so. I mean, like you said, you have a responsibility. You've got millions of people around the world that probably some of them haven't watched a fight in years. Maybe this is the first time they put it on Netflix. Oh, Netflix Live, let me check this out. You have a responsibility to call the fight fairly. Just call what you see. And again, I'm not pointing fingers, but Rosie Perez, I don't know Rosie Perez, but, I remember, I think Do the Right Thing was like late 80s. We had like White Man Can't Jump in the early 90s. That's the extent of what I know of Rosie Perez. She's a boxing fan, but does that mean she's qualified to commentate on the most viewed fight in history? Probably not. And when we heard that, I knew she's going to be pro Serrano, and obviously it doesn't affect us. We just have to go out there and execute our plan and win the fight. But again, it does, you'd like to have an evenly called fight just for the fans.
For sure. And Rosie Perez is the voice who says this is an asterisk on Taylor's legacy. And if you're just watching the fight as a bystander, you're like, oh, this person who knows what they're talking about has said that Katie Taylor's legacy is damaged. And there's a chance that if you are not overly familiar with the sport or with Katie Taylor or Amanda Serrano, you're like, okay, that's now my opinion of this fighter. The bad person won here, and her legacy is tarnished.
100%. I mean, Katie's obviously huge in Ireland, but, there's parts of the world where Netflix is airing that they probably haven't heard much about Katie Taylor. Maybe they didn't know much about Amanda Serrano either, but they're watching it and they're engrossed in this exciting fight. And now they're walking away like, oh, wait a minute, the wrong fighter won, when it's not the case. It was a close, hard-fought fight. Could have gone either way. Could have been a draw. Like, you couldn't have made an argument either way, but we just edged it. It was a close fight. And the funny thing is, even if you watch the fight back, Serrano's corner, I think they went to him in the 8th or 9th round, and he's kind of like, oh, I think we're up by 1 round. So you're basically saying that you think you're up by a round with a round or 2 to go. That's a close fight. So you can't then kind of shift gears and say, oh, it was a massive robbery. No, because you yourself said it was a 1-round fight.
That's a good point. Did they ask you if you wanted to speak during the fight?
No, they never came to me, which I'm okay with. I don't actually like speaking during the fight. Obviously, you're in the moment, but no, they never came over.
Yeah, and like, to an extent, you can kind of forgive Serrano's corner for being really passionate about it and saying stuff off the cuff and being in the heat of the moment, right?
Yeah, if their emotions are running wild. Look, we want to win. They want to win. The first fight was obviously super close. You can't, I don't fault them. Listen, you say things. If everyone was judged at what they said at one of the most emotional times in their life, I think we'd all, have some, things to answer for. But,
yeah, and obviously Amanda herself wrote back a little bit on her public pronouncements afterwards. The one thing, though, that might carry over from that is just the headbutting allegations. Ross, what was your take on what was said by Jordan Maldonado, by the Serrano corner, with regards to Taylor's headbutting?
Listen, you have obviously, you have a lefty and a righty.
Yeah.
You're gonna be more prone to headbutt. Doesn't happen all the time, but you've also got Serrano, who's intent on coming forward. She's a pressure fighter rather. She's trying to come forward at us. And Katie in this fight held her ground a little bit more than in the first fight, where she's trying to sit down on some shots and get some respect. And then you couple that with fatigue as the rounds are going by, legs are getting tired. Yeah, there's going to be some contact inside. Sometimes it's head positioning where you're trying to get your head off the line. Sometimes, if you look at the video, there are instances where they both actually meet each other with their heads, where if you watch it in slow motion, I don't know who's to blame, neither of them to blame, but they're both meeting each other. And you're going to get that in gritty, in close kind of bang them out fights, and it lets other people kind of chime in like, oh, it happened in the Cameron fight. Like if you watch the second Cameron fight and you go to the 8th round, Cameron literally like jumps into us and headbutts Katie in the cheek. It was the worst headbutt of the fight. We never talked about it, so you never hear about it, but she had bruising in her cheek for several weeks after the fight. But again, we don't jump on social media and say, oh, poor me, look what happened to me. We just kind of get on with things where if you keep going to it, people kind of latch on like, oh, look at all these headbutts. I think Roy Jones, during the commentary, he was actually at least neutral there, where he was kind of saying, listen, she's not doing it on purpose. It's the nature of this type of fight. Yeah. But again, the other commentators kind of paint that picture. Oh, look at the headbutts. Because even in the 8th round, when the point's taken, if you look at what happened in slow motion, there wasn't a headbutt that had occurred at the time the point was taken. So, yeah, there had been contact. We got cut too. Katie got stitches in the dressing room after the fight, which, again, we don't talk about it, but she was getting sewed up while the Tyson Paul fight was going on.
The point being taken then, that could have proved crucial had Serrano actually won the fight. And from what so why did he deduct the point at that point of the fight then?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's like you wonder where it came from. Obviously their corner was complaining. So, was he influenced by that? Only he knows what led him to do it at that given time. Obviously, I'm seeing the point getting taken and I'm thinking, wow, this is a really close fight. Like that could cost us the fight. You got to let the fighters kind of figure it out themselves in that type of fight. You can't interject yourself into the fight and make yourself one of the players. Let the fighters figure it out for themselves. But, fortunately, it didn't work against us, and we still came out on top.
Yeah, that is fortunate in the end. But, was it the sense that there was a hometown decision there a little bit in that point being deducted?
I don't, like I said, only the ref knows, and hope that wouldn't be the case. But, it seemed like kind of a strange moment to suddenly say, hey, wait a minute. Okay, that's a point. Okay. Because there wasn't contact at the time he jumped in. So,
can I ask, Ross, just in general, the whole week, the fight, the aftermath, as you said at the top, it was an away day for Team Taylor. There's no getting away from that. But were you surprised by the level of how much this was a Serrano fight, by how much you guys really felt like outsiders in terms of the whole experience here?
Like MVP, I mean, and honestly, like they were great to us. I thought during the week, they were really, hospitable and they were friendly to us. So we didn't have any problems throughout the week. On fight night, it's going to be a little bit different. Obviously, everyone wants to win. And, Akisa was kind of sitting right next to the corner and he was screaming during the fight. But I don't blame him. Serrano's his fighter and he's emotional. He wants to win. I mean, I'd probably be doing the same thing. But we were treated fine during the week. I can't say that they, treated us poorly or unfairly at all.
When you're in the corner, do you know what people are saying? Can you hear specifically what somebody like Nakisa is saying? Can you hear the individual barbs being thrown from the sidelines?
I heard certain things. You're not listening, obviously, but he's literally like 5 feet to my left. And, there were some people that were like screaming some ridiculous things into the ring directly at Katie, where it's like, I mean, really, like, have a little bit of class. But obviously you're just, it's in and out because we're worried about the fight itself. But, you do hear certain things and you're sitting there like, I mean, really though, like, you shouldn't say that to anyone, particularly like two athletes that are giving it their all, like fighting their heart out for your entertainment,
And was that the most vitriolic you had seen the environment around a Taylor fight?
Uh, I mean, maybe. I mean, typically, obviously, Katie's always been on matchroom shows where, we are the home fighter. So, I guess from that standpoint, it was a little bit different. I mean, there's always gonna be people against you. You can't really give them any attention because you don't want to, bring that into your own mind and, change the way what you should be doing. You got to focus on your own job, which me is just kind of helping Katie navigate through the fight.
You've also got to stay unbelievably calm because you need to know exactly how you're going to get your message across in that very short window in between rounds. I think we only got you mic'd up on 3 occasions between rounds, but you can tell from after round 1, it's a very tactical, cold analysis of what Katie needs to do in the second round onwards, whereas they go back to you right before the final round, and it's a much more emotional thing. You got to fight like a dog, and that change in tone. That I presume that's a very, very important part of your gig in that moment.
Well, early in the fight, obviously, you can talk tactics, and
Yeah.
obviously, you have to know your fighter. But when you're in the ninth or 10th round, and both fighters are tired, it's not really a time to be talking about tactics. They're both spent at this point. You've got to bite down on your mouthpiece and go get it. And that's one thing that Katie has done unbelievably well throughout her career. Like when it gets gritty and it gets tough, like she is willing to give everything she has in there. And that's one of the reasons it's so frustrating when you see all these people talking crap basically about her. It's like, put some respect on her name. I mean, not only is she how much she's done for the sport itself, but I mean, she literally gives every ounce that she has to the fight. I mean, she was on E in the 10th round and she's just letting it go. And most people have no idea what that takes. Like you have to go somewhere that a lot of people, they want to think they can go there, but until you're in that situation, you never really know. And Katie's done it time and time again.
Was Katie affected by the negativity around it?
No, she's actually great like that. She actually pays no attention to it. I don't even think she reads any of the comments on social media. So she trusts the people that are close to her. And obviously, those people are telling her positive things. So, as far as what a stranger's saying, it's not even in one ear and out the other. I don't even think she's hearing it. So, which is good. It's like social media is vile. I mean, you get opinions and they all feed off of each other, and you could drive yourself crazy if you actually read all the comments.
Yeah, for sure. We were speaking to her a couple of weeks before the fight, and she was making the point that she thinks she's getting better and better at this stage of her career. Is that what you're seeing as well in training, that because maybe she went to the pro ranks a little bit later than some of her contemporaries, that actually she's still growing and developing as a fighter?
I mean, you want to always think you're developing. It's like, it's hard to think about, she's had 8 years of professional experience now. So obviously she's had some really great performances. She's obviously a lot more experienced as far as, dealing with the nerves of the fight and, the pre-week craziness where they're pulling you here and there and you've got to go to a press conference, you got to do pictures, sign this, and it can be draining. So she's definitely matured and she can get through that a lot more where she doesn't get as worked up. Even about early on press conference, she used to be real stressed out about the press conferences. For now, she just kind of takes it in stride and, just get on with things. Let's just get to fight night and get on with the fight.
Where does, as you say, when in that final round, you're a dog, you're built for this shit, I think is your words to her in the corner. Where does that come from in Katie Taylor? What is lighting, what is keeping that fire lighting inside her, do you think?
You're born with it. Like, it's like one of my old coaches always said, you either have heart or you don't. You can't really give it to someone. And she was definitely born with it. She's got an unusual heart. And, obviously you can train and push yourself, but no matter what you do in the gym, you're going to get tired in the fight. Like people don't realize that. You think like you train so hard and I'm not going to get tired. No, you're going to get tired. Like Ali was probably the greatest fighter ever at fighting tired. You're going to get tired. You're going to have to deal with it. And, she can deal with it. She can bite down. And it's been the difference in a lot of the close fights that she's had because she's willing to go places that even other great fighters aren't willing to go.
When did you first realize that you would go to those places?
It's hard to pinpoint. I mean, you can see it in the gym, even like, it's obviously she's ultra competitive, which helps. It's like you don't want anyone to get the best of you. So, you see it when she's training with others, when she's sparring. But obviously, again, it's different. When you're in a tight fight and, we got the last 2 or 3 rounds and it's razor close, like I said, she's willing to bite down and go for it. And we've had to do it at different times throughout our career. And like I said, I've never seen, I don't think anybody like that. I mean, like, she's had fights. People have no idea. Like, she's had fights where she won a world title and had torn her calf. Like, there's people that wouldn't be able to walk up a flight of stairs. She's out there fighting 10 rounds, winning a world championship with a torn muscle in her leg, and never said a word about it. Never said a word about it. Wouldn't even have, thought of mentioning it to pull out of the fight. Like, she's just built different in that regard.
Have you started to think about what's next?
Not too much. I mean, it's like, you're just kind of coming off of, obviously, a year. We've kind of been preparing for this on and off for the last year. So it's hard to know. I mean, obviously, I think there's people talking about fighting Serrano again. And, so I don't know what's going to come of that. I don't know, how many fights Katie, has left or wants to have left. Obviously, that's a personal decision that, she needs to sit down and think about. But, I'm assuming it might be Serrano next again. There might be a third fight. There's a lot of people obviously calling for it, but, probably just have to get through it to the new year and see what comes.
Surely Serrano as a home fight, maybe not necessarily in geography, but as a home promotion at this point, Ross, is what you would personally want.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. That's for sure.
One really fascinating point in Katie's career over the past few years, and it's a very obvious thing to bring up, is the defeat to Chantel Cameron. How important was that in terms of where she's at the moment and in keeping that fight going in her own career at the moment? Because I know that you've written quite a lot in the past, and certainly in one of your books, about just failure and how you approach failure and how that drives you on and how you deal with that. Does your view on how you deal with failure align with Katie Taylor's view on failure? And maybe that word is too strong a word to use with regards to the Cameron defeat, because it was an unbelievable fight, but it was still a defeat on the record. So how important has that been?
I don't know. Obviously, you don't want to have to go through that lesson if you don't need to. We would have preferred to obviously win that night, but as far as how important it was, I mean, she did pretty well prior to that. Has it changed her? I don't know if it's changed her, but she was certainly very hungry after that defeat, wanting to right the wrong when we fought Cameron again. Like, she had Cameron on her mind, day in and day out. Like, she needs to get that back. She needs to get that fight. She's just got that competitiveness that, like I said, it's just who she is. She was born that way. But as far as the significance or the importance, like I said, if it was up to us, we would have never had that lesson. But, certainly how you deal with failure, it can definitely make or break you, because not everybody responds like that. Some people maybe let it get into their head and say, man, maybe I don't have it anymore, where, that wasn't even a thought in her mind. She knew she could be better than she was that night. And she proved that she was.
How has the last 8 years changed your life, Ross? Obviously, you've had a very successful life in sport before Katie Taylor messages you out of the blue and you start to research who this woman is and you realise how brilliant she is, and she comes and visits you, and you guys have been on this amazing journey for the last 8 years. I presume it's totally changed your life, but at the same time, it seems that her training and your setup is focused on basics, and maybe at a fundamental level, your day-to-day is actually not that different to what it used to be.
Yeah, it's, I'm pretty low key, so I mean, I wouldn't say it's really changed too much.
Right.
I would be in the gym anyway. So obviously we've had some pretty amazing, nights and moments, and like that you would have never imagined 8 years ago today when she had her first pro fight. But as far as the day-to-day goes, I don't think a whole lot's actually changed, to be honest with you, as crazy as that might sound.
Yeah, obviously, as I say, you had a very successful sporting career before Taylor arrives in your life. I presume when you look back, when you make the decision to go from a very successful career in the business world into full-time in terms of coaching and in the sports world, it's a sliding doors moment in your life that you've got absolutely no regrets about at this point.
No, none at all. I mean, like I said, it's like not many, people could have imagined kind of being on this journey. So to go through it myself, it's certainly been a fun ride. Like, we've had, we fought in, Wembley and sold out Madison Square Garden, fighting at, Dallas Cowboys Stadium. So it's like, who would ever imagine that 8 years ago today when we had our first fight?
Yeah, it's been remarkable. Ross, can I ask you what's in the photo behind your back there, just on the Zoom
Oh,
link?
it's just Fenway Park.
It's
Just I'm a
Fenway.
Red Sox fan. Yeah.
Very good. Because I know that you're a big Patriots fan as well. Do you take in the Red Sox aspect? Do you take in the Patriots aspects at all when you're trying to motivate yourself as a coach or inform yourself as a coach?
Not this year. Patriots are having a rough season. No, I mean Bill Belichick. Obviously, when he was with the Patriots, he's one of my favorite coaches. I mean, he can, I don't think anyone could not learn from him. Just listen to him. But he obviously set a great example as far as what's expected, and work ethic, and dedication and discipline, and all things that obviously Katie brings to the table as an athlete herself. So.
Just one last question then. Eddie Hearn was on with us last week, and he specifically made reference to the Sphere in Las Vegas. We were asking about Croke Park as well, and he said that they're a couple of the things that Taylor really wants to do. Fight in Vegas, fight in Croke Park are definitely on her wish list. Do you get a sense from her that she has a particular hierarchy on one of those ultimate destinations?
I don't think so. I mean, she probably would say that in an interview, but the reality is, like, when it comes down to it, I don't really think she cares who's there when she's fighting. It's like, I know it's the right thing to say, that she wants to fight here or there, but when we're there, it's just, we don't really see anybody. There could be 8 people or 80,000. We still got to go out there and win the fight. So, obviously, I think she probably wanted to fight in Vegas once because she never did. And, Croke Park, I know that was kind of, it's been on and off. I mean, I don't know if that'll ever happen. It would have been nice, but I don't know if the ship has already sailed.
Yeah, we will see. We will see. Well, fingers crossed, maybe one day it will. Ross, thank you so much for your time today, and congratulations once again on another brilliant win with Katie. We'll chat to you again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Bye.